Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about Shadowdark, and I want to talk about Kelsey Dion, and I want to talk about a brand new dungeon master who was said, I've tried Dungeons and Dragons for a year, I don't like it, and Shadowdark is a good alternative, and pointing people toward Shadowdark instead of playing Dungeons and Dragons. And this really, link below, and you could see this gentleman's channel. And he is a father, and he played Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition with his son, and then said, I don't like any of this, I'm going to switch to Shadowdark, and then brought his son along with with Shadowdark. Now this was catnip to me because I love Dungeons and Dragons, and I believe that it has outpaced and outperformed the OSR, every OSR and indie game easily, right? But there's this huge discussion online, and a lot of the OSR and the indie are like, Dungeons and Dragons isn't a good game. It just trades on its name, and its success is unwarranted. And I really felt like this gentleman was saying the same thing. There's a point where he holds up the PHP and he says, "This stupid book," and I'm like, "Wait a second, man. That's the 2014 Player's Handbook. Maybe put a little respect in your mouth, right?" And he was saying that Shadowdark was a better alternative, right? Now, this is the reason why we're talking today. Is I rolled into his comments and I commented below, and I was like, "Hey, you're not listening to your player, right?" And the reason why is his player made a character in Shadowdark, loved the character in Shadowdark. The character died immediately. Welcome to the OSR, right? Where your characters don't matter. They don't have an impact on the world. And your dungeon master is just going to say, roll up a new one because the first one didn't matter, and it really doesn't matter that the second one doesn't matter. You're here because I want you here. And this is what I believe the OSR is, and the reason why we're talking today is I think this Dungeon Master father presented the receipts. He summarized his son's experience as, it sucked, he was mad, right? And this is why I point people away from Shadowdark and the other OSR games, right? And the reason why is characters need to matter. That's the point, right? Like, who's going to invest themselves? Who's going to care about, nobody cares about a styrofoam cup, right? Like, it's throwaway. And that's what the OSR is. It's a bunch of throwaway characters, and nothing that happens in these stories matters, right? And so I point people to Dungeons and Dragons, which has a robust rule system, has the best rules in the world, the best art in the world, and the best layout in the world, right? And I came up and I'm like, hey, you're not listening to your player. Your player did not like, you summarized their experience as, it sucked, he was mad, right? And that was his son's experience in his own words, right? But the father was like, we're ready to play Shadowdark again next week. And I'm like, wait, if you're saying that for him it sucked and he was mad, why are you dragging him back to the table? And I believe this is what's happening with most OSR games. They suck, and people play them because the dungeon master wants to play this as a shake their fist to Dungeons and Dragons. And I believe that this dungeon master father has fallen into this very commonly repeated lie: D&D bad, OSR indie good. And it's a lie. It's just not true. And so I said, and he said, well, have you played Shadowdark? I said, nope, I didn't play Shadowdark. I haven't wasted my time on it. And the reason why is its writing, its layout, and its art are a joke. And I would be embarrassed to present it to any player, right? Well, the creator of Shadowdark, Kelsey Dion, comes in and says, my art is not a joke. My layout is actually award-winning. My writing is good, right? Now, she said, hey, I'm the creator, so admittedly, I'm biased, right? But what I think is really interesting is here we have the receipts, and this is my entire point, right? This is a young person. Young people do not want to play OSR games, and they get trapped in these games by older gamers who love this, an OSR nostalgia copy game. And that's what Shadowdark is. It's an OSR nostalgia copy game that no teenager in the world would ever be interested in, right? And here's the receipts. this father said, "Oh, Dungeons and Dragons is bad. Let's play Shadowdark." One session, and this teenager's like, "Why do I want to play your paper cup crumple game? I cared about my character, and you didn't, and it's dead. And why did I ever even make it?" And he's right. Right? These OSR games that say that what the dungeon master creates matters and what the players create doesn't, and it's just a piece of paper, right? And they don't care about death, and they don't care about life, and they don't care about narrative. It's not good, right? And the reason why I jumped in on this is I really wanted to say, hey, you're brand new, you've played for a year with Dungeons and Dragons, and you're telling people to run off and play an OSR. And the reality is, after the OGL crisis in 2023, and I'm not even sure this DM's been in the game long enough to even understand any of that, right? We know, I want this guy to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I want him to not trap his poor teenage son in this OSR game that no teenager in the world would ever be interested in. Why on earth would a teenager be interested in a nostalgia copy game that's harkening back to a time they literally never were even alive for, right? But what is interesting to teenagers, right, and to engaged adults, everything Dungeons and Dragons has, right? Oh, and so I said, Kelsey Dion's game is a joke in writing, art, and layout. Now, let me defend that. On the art side, it's not even debatable, right? The art on Dungeons and Dragons is so good that last year there was literally a debacle where people said, "Hey, you guys used AIs," and the artist came forward, Nestor, and said, "No, that's not AI, that's me. Yes, my art is so good it's indiscernible from the fact that a computer made it, right? But I made it. Like, my art is so good, people don't even think it's possible for humans to do art that good, right? The best fantasy artists do full color work. Shadowdark is created by a professor who does death metal album covers all in black and white. It's not even his day job, right? Whereas Dungeons and Dragons is the best in the world. Kelsey Dion's done some great projects. The best writers in the world are on Dungeons and Dragons, literally, right? People who have been in the industry for 5 decades, and people who are passionate and skilled have been there for 5 years, right? And then finally, the layout. The layout on, Kelsey Dion is saying that her layout is award-winning. Should it be? You're literally copying, older version. You're making your game look like older versions of Dungeons and Dragons. Should you be winning awards for copying layout that was done decades ago? I don't know. Yeah, so I really believe no one can be saying that anybody should be switching over to Shadowdark from Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is the best in the world, and I think when you hold up to PHP, you shouldn't say this stupid book, right? And if you do, and you have if you have 1 year of experience, and you're pushing people over OSR and Indie, I don't think it's appropriate, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. The important part is when I hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.